My name is Philip Bogdonoff. I'm the director of the Washington, D.C. chapter of Biodiversity for Livable Climate. It's an organization that's barely 3 years old, based in Boston. So I'm an employee here at Steptoe & Johnson and convinced my bosses to let us have this new space. It's barely a month old. We are in the process of renovation, so you're experiencing a brand new building for us. And eventually we'll be LEED Gold certified. We'll have green roofs. You saw the green walls as you came in. We're very pleased with how the space has come out and very pleased to be able to host this event here. So welcome, everyone. As I said, this is being sponsored by Biodiversity for Livable Climate. Our co-sponsor is Regeneration International. We're very grateful for their support and partnership, both financial and moral. They've been with us in many aspects of the work we've been doing in the last couple of years. And Alexis Baden-Mayer is here representing them. She's live streaming this, so be careful what you say. It's going out to the rest of the world. But she's also a panelist, so you'll hear her speak about what they're doing. Just a few logistics. This room, we do have the air conditioning on. If it gets too hot for you, we have an overflow space where the sound and video is piped in. It's a boardroom kind of seating arrangement, so if you want to cool off, you can go down there. On the other side, the back of that, if you haven't noticed already, we have a room with books laid out and other materials. We also have our friend Eric Packer from Progressive Asset Management in the hallway there telling us about how to do socially responsible investing. What else do I need to cover? I just want to thank all the volunteers. We are a volunteer organization here in DC. People have very busy lives doing other things. Gina Angiola recently helped get the ban on fracking in Maryland passed. We have other activities like that. So, but this is becoming a growing priority for us, as you'll hear as the stories unfold during the day. There's growing concern for what's happening to our planet in terms of ecosystem destruction and increasing temperatures. And what we hope to do today is paint a picture of a scenario where we think there are myriad opportunities for us to all engage at different levels to make a change in that. And so it's our honor to present that information to you. We thank you for taking the time on an otherwise busy weekend and early on a Sunday morning to come here. Without further ado, unless I've missed something terrible, the bathrooms, if you haven't found them already, if you walk out here, turn right down short hallway, turn another right, you'll find men and women's. Right. Also, given that there's so many of us, we will have short breaks here and there, but it would be helpful if not everybody had to use them at that time. And if you can manage yourselves to leave and come back at other times, that would help the flow of things. We have an amazing lunch menu, 100% organic, variety of things if anybody wants to look at it in the break, but that will be served on the other side of this sort of wall here. You'll have to walk around at the appropriate time. But please help yourself to the coffee and the fruit and snacks throughout the day. And it's now my honor to introduce our fearless leader, Adam Sachs, Executive Director of Biodiversity of Livable Climate. The organization sort of was spawned when Adam and Jim, who's a biologist, and a few other people came together and realized there was a whole other story to tell about how to address climate change. So, Adam.
And I might add that this conference would not have happened without Philip's extraordinary work and efforts. So I think he deserves a round of applause. I don't need to belabor the point with this audience. I don't think that the climate is unraveling faster than anybody expected. So I will belabor something else. Even at this late date, we have the tools to address global warming. But to globalized human cultures, these tools are largely invisible. In a mindset enthralled by technology and stuff, the power of nature is invisible. Our task is to make the invisible visible in the context of climate and the biosphere. To do that, it may help to explore briefly some thoughts on how we know what we know, to question some of the formidable basic assumptions we're wrestling with today. As the recent Science March illustrated, our faith in science is strong. Scientific methodology is, in fact, a powerful tool, and the practice of modern science has produced profound understandings and stunning discoveries. But science is an invention of earthlings. You know, the little bipeds that run across the planet with big ideas, babes on the evolutionary timeline. And as such, science is subject not only to our brilliance, but to our quirks. Quirks such as persistent belief systems, even in the face of contrary evidence, as well as episodes of bias and stubbornness when confronted by change that is virtually certain, like global warming. That's understandable from an evolutionary perspective. In most of our 2 million year history as hominids, things mostly didn't change very fast. Lessons were hard earned by your tribe, and your best chance to survive was to do what your culture told you to do, which plants to eat, when to go hunting and where, how to stay safe from dangers in your jungle or savanna, how to raise your children, how to make medicines, and so forth. Unfortunately, such evolutionary inclinations serve us less well when the world changes so quickly that the wisdom of the tribe turns away from the natural world and becomes anthropocentric and solipsistic, that is, more impressed with itself and its technologies than with photosynthesis, water droplets, microbes, and other deep essentials of life on Earth. We at Biodiversity for a Livable Climate are also strong advocates of science, but we're in a kind of funny position. The science we advocate has been chronically dismissed in the climate arena, as has learning from experience outside of controlled experimental protocols. Such empirical science is the stuff at the foundation of inquiry. It's more of a system science than an isolated variable science. Charles Darwin, for example, he did okay without peer review. But we've lost a good deal of respect for that kind of discovery. And along the way, with such things as our love affair with biomolecules, we have lost sight of the intricate web of connection, of the science of life that's alive. The 200-year-old science at the heart of global warming, in a sense, doesn't have a heart. It is the science of physics, chemistry, and related inquiries into the non-living world. It is a science where the actual life on Earth is an afterthought. Yes, it certainly recognizes how living things are affected by changes in climate, but it rejects the extent of impact that living things have upon climate. To reiterate, living things affect climate. In fact, living things create the climate. That understanding has been evolving of late, but far too slowly. Right now, we don't have time for garden variety paradigm shifts. As one clever person said, paradigm shifts happen one funeral at a time. We don't have time for that many funerals at this point. I am in the habit of pointing out that without life, planet Earth would be just another big rock orbiting in space. No disrespect intended for the astronomers and cosmologists and all of those folks. But starting with around 3.5 billion years of single-celled creatures, living things, their chemistry, their determined molding of habitats, then their transformation into larger and larger forces, their creation of an oxygen atmosphere, their emergence from oceans to create soils, their powerful influence on the planet's physical features from rivers to mountains to the deep blue sea. Earth gave life a place to get started, with just the right amount of sunlight and liquid water and ample minerals. But life made it all happen. This geophysical ball would be nothing of what it is without life. How much is current science a help or a hindrance? It behooves us all, including the scientists among us, to take a careful look at how science works today and how our practices may improve. For example, while peer review can be a powerful tool, let's keep in mind that we're in a world of shifting paradigms where there are libraries full of peer-reviewed papers in scientific landfills. Peer reviewers get to review their peers because they are thinking along similar lines and are likely, perhaps even required, to reject ideas outside of the mainstream boundaries of thought. Even the conventional authors of a recent USDA study had a very difficult time getting their paper past peer review because its results were so unexpected. And I can refer you to those papers. I'll do that at the end. And that doesn't begin to touch any of the forces in the political and economic realms that impact peer-reviewed science, including what gets studies and what does not. Scientists often do not make those decisions. Peer review is a standard, but not a gold standard. It is one among many, and as practitioners of scientific method, we have an obligation to evaluate the relevance of our standards, even as we use them. I mention this because we in the eco-restoration business are constantly met with this belief when we talk about the stunning power of biological systems to regenerate, to return from habitat death to abundant life in just a few years' time. I can show a plot of land that turned from barren and bare into a biodiverse, abundant, green, and aqueous blue paradise in 3 years, and the first question I'll get is, where's the data? Even if it's been witnessed 1,000 times around the world, the challenge will be, where's the data? Is not a transformed landscape data? Even if there's only one, isn't it evidence? Yes, we need to be able to do similar things over and over again, particularly if we are to reverse global warming. But we dismiss something that's unfamiliar but important only at our peril. In sum, life on Earth is an ultimate complex system. It is a whole not only greater than the sum of its parts. With its portfolio of emergent properties, that is, properties that are only manifest when all the pieces are working together, the whole will look entirely different from any of its parts. You can't possibly construct the working of this little blue orb by looking at any of its virtually infinite variables or any collection of those variables. When we assume we can do that, we run into potholes, if not black holes, all along the way. In modern globalized society, unintended consequences, mostly unpleasant, are a way of life. Global warming is the poster child of things that seemed like a good idea at the time. For example, using fossil fuels to ease manual labor, synthetic fertilizers to increase yields, planting large fields of a single crop, etc., and so forth. The list is endless. Notwithstanding, at this point in history, reductionist science prevails. I hasten to add that reductionism is not a pejorative, it's a description of the attempts to isolate variables in order to understand the world. Reductionist science has many fascinating and exceptional accomplishments to its credit. It is the lion's share of the work carried out in laboratories and field studies around the world. But understanding how systems work is not its strong point. Understanding how climate change works is not its strong point. The classic example here is that it has overlooked the single most powerful force on planet Earth, and that is biology. And if you don't believe me, I'll be happy to talk to you more about it later. The funny thing is that the formal isolate the variable kind of data in regeneration of the biosphere is out there, it's growing every day, it supports our position on the potential of the living biodiverse world to restore its habitats so that life may go on. The problem is that the data that we need is spread across scientific disciplines that often know little of what each other is doing, and it often shows up in unexpected places. One of our tasks at Biodiversity for a Livable Climate is to create a village green of compelling eco-restoration evidence. There is no doubt in our minds that scenario 300 is a possibility, even a primary outcome for the natural world. We humans have a critically important role to play. All we have to do is change our technophiliac minds just a little bit. Biodiversity for a Livable Climate has joined in this work of helping to regenerate the biosphere all over the world in pockets of enlightenment on every continent. In the past 2.5 years, we have held 8 conferences. This is our 9th. And we have had speakers from near and far to present instances of successful restoration to abundance of dead and dying land. Today, we hope to take a significant step and propose a roadmap for the climate movement and anyone concerned with life on Earth. To that end, we are creating a compendium of the literature, a collection of articles, including many from peer-reviewed literature. It's very early in the process, but we are using this occasion to announce it and release a draft. It has only a limited number of articles, but it will give you the flavor of the potential of eco-restoration and support some of what you hear today. So if you're interested, send me an email, adam.sachs@bioforclimate.org, and we'll also announce it and put it up on our website. It's only 30 pages long right now, but don't worry, we will accumulate many pages as we go. It was kind of a rush to get a draft done today, so there are some inconsistencies in it, but it'll give you the idea. And I also invite anybody who has some of the literature that you think is pertinent to send it on and write something in the style of this compendium, and we'll be happy to add it. In closing, I would like to cite ecological pioneer Barry Commoner's framing of the 4 laws, laws of ecology. Everything comes from somewhere, also known as there's no such thing as a free lunch. Everything goes somewhere. Everything is connected to everything else. And nature knows best. Thank you.